Okay, so before I jump into this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to all my new subscribers. You guys totally rock. Certainly making me feel the love right now. Also, welcome to new members on my channel. Now, I've decided that given that I have seen quite a large number of new subscribers, I'm going to aim to do a few videos that I'll put out as premieres within the next week. Simply so that I can actually gift some memberships to people. Because, yeah, I'm just feeling the love right now, and I'm just really thrilled to see the increase in subscribers on my channel and the support that I'm getting through comments. And I'm starting to see, well, I'm seeing a really wonderful community down in the comments section. So shout out to all those wonderful people who are consistently making comments and really thinking about the things that I'm putting forward in these videos. Now, one of the things that I've become aware of is that there is so much confusion still over the timeline. And I know I need to clarify a lot of things in my head as well. So I'm going to do a series of videos where I try and make a little bit more sense of the timeline. I'm going to use interviews and documents, and within those documents there's also a few images that I can use as well that will help, and maybe between all of them that will help us to just get a better understanding of what the timeline actually looks like, as opposed to trying to figure it out based on the changing stories of Jen and Stephan. So for today's timeline, I'm just going to look at the evening of Maddie's party. So this is probably going to be a bit shorter and probably a bit easier to follow than the later videos that I do. In terms of the day that she was reported missing, that may have to be a two-part video given how complicated the morning is. But I'll see how I go with that as I look at it. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to look at that Sunday, starting from when Maddie went to her party and then going through up until the last bit of information we have, which is the roommate going to bed at around 2:30 and reporting noises from room 4. So I'll go through that and I'll show you as much information as I've found so far to try and support what we're looking at. So let's jump in.
When did you come back to help Jen? Is that her name?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like, because you live down south, right? Mm-hmm. When did you come back up north to help her?
I just got here this weekend.
Do you remember what day it was?
Sunday. Sunday was her birthday party, so yeah, it was the evening after her birthday party. Sunday.
Okay. Do you remember what time you got here on Sunday?
8:30ish, maybe.
Okay.
Just in time to make sure that she was doing all her nighttime routines.
So he's really only giving a estimate at this point in time, saying that it was around 8:30, just in time to make sure she was doing her nightly routines, which is something that we've heard fairly consistently. So it seems to me that this part of the evening is fairly consistent. He's not exact here with his times, and I'll come up with the data to show you the exact times after I've gone through all these videos.
So you last saw her Sunday night about what time?
I would say 11 p.m. before she went to bed.
And you were here at home?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And where did she go to bed? Was she in her room, your room, or something else?
She actually slept upstairs with, we have a guest bedroom.
So here she's saying that she sent Maddie upstairs with Stephan at around 11 p.m. So is this consistent in her statements? I'm going to go through a few other ones to see what she says.
Not to be like exact time, but like just. Oh, and then yesterday she had Sunday she had her birthday party, right?
Sunday she had her birthday party.
Okay, what time was that party at?
It started at 3 o'clock.
Okay, from 3 to what time?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I was at work.
Oh, okay, you weren't there.
But I know my sister was home around 8:30.
Was Stephan here at that time?
I'm not sure if he was here at the time, but I think he got here a little bit after. And he was like, okay, she was already doing what she was supposed to. She had taken her nighttime meds, and she was getting ready for bed, like taking a shower. She'd take showers at night. So he's like, okay, she was already on it. I didn't get home until, I'm going to say 10:30.
Okay.
And then at 11, I sent him to bed.
Did Stephan make it to the party?
No.
Okay.
So far she's been fairly consistent. She's saying she got home around 10:30. She sent them to bed around 11. She also mentions here about the party starting at 3 and that Stephanie dropped Maddie home at 8:30 and Stephan arrived a short while after that. I think most of us have probably got that clear in our heads, but it is interesting just to see if there is consistency in these statements.
Yeah, you Stephen.
No. He was on his way here from Northport, Florida, during the party.
Okay. And so he would have gotten here like Sunday night.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
She might have at home around 8:30, and I think Stephan walked into the house about 10 minutes later and made sure that she was supposed to, which was take her meds and get in the shower and get ready for bed.
Yeah.
So when I got home from work, she had already showered. She had taken her meds. She was getting ready. She was ready.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, I thought I'd heard him say something about her like singing a song that night or introducing her to a new movie or something.
Yes, she started singing. So she's in chorus. She's got such a beautiful voice. She was singing, practicing one of her chorus songs, and Stephan heard it. He's like, "Wow, you have such a beautiful voice. Let's watch, I think, Sister Act."
Sister Act, yeah.
So we wanted to watch a movie about singing, and she liked it. But we didn't finish the whole thing.
Okay, so this is the first instance where the timeline starts to become problematic, because she's talking about Maddie singing and about them watching Sister Act, but here she's including herself in it, and we were going to watch Sister Act, but we didn't get through all of it in half an hour, while you were also talking about Maddie's party. It's just not gelling there at all. It's a different story completely to the story that she gives later on about discussing Maddie's party. And in fact, later on, this whole Sister Act narrative seems to have been completely dropped. So I suspect that this was a narrative that Stephan gave to her to run with, and that at some point in time, either her or Stephan or both of them have realised that that narrative wasn't working, and they've just discarded it completely because it is gone from later interviews. So now we move on to the interview that was done with Jen on the 18th of April. So this is the derivative use interview, where she's basically been cautioned that, if she lies, she could be prosecuted. If she's telling the truth, she's not going to be prosecuted for any information that she gives them in that interview, unless it's something they've discovered for themselves. So, to me, this is possibly the stronger bit of information, although you could take it two ways. When it comes to these sort of things, a lot of the time the first interview can be perhaps the more accurate one because they haven't had time to really work on the narrative. But the fact that this one has those legal ramifications hanging over her head, to me that suggests that this is one that is worth paying attention to. She has her lawyer there with her, so I think she understands the severity of the situation. So I think that in this one, she's probably trying to be a little bit more honest.
My understanding is that on February 25th of this year, you were working at the hotel on Disney property out at Coronado Springs.
Yes.
You
You have to answer
out loud and loud enough to get caught on the record. I know you're upset. I know.
Yes.
All right. And did you get off at 10 p.m.?
Yes.
All right. Did you go directly home?
Yes.
About how long does it take you to get home?
About 25 to 30 minutes.
I probably should have given Grizzly a shout out at the start of this video, because a lot of what I've used in this video is actually her content. So the April 18th is from Grizzly's channel, and the one that I played previously as labelled was also from Grizzly. Now, going back to the timeline. So here we're just narrowing it in a bit more. She finished work at 10 and it takes her 25 minutes to half an hour, which still has her arriving home at 10:30. So I think we can confidently go with that, and I think the data will show that also.
And when you get home, who is downstairs, if anybody? You have a two-story, is it a townhome? Is that the best word for it?
Yeah, it's a townhome.
If anybody is downstairs, who is downstairs?
I saw my daughter Madeline and Stephan.
Do you recall what Madeline was wearing?
No.
And do you recall what Stephan was wearing?
I can't tell you now.
Okay. When you get home from work, do you need to kind of eat a late dinner before you get settled in for bed?
Yes.
And do you eat there at your home?
Yes.
What do you eat?
I think I had a pub sub waiting for me in the house, a sandwich.
Okay. Did anybody join you in sitting down and eating?
No, I ate in my bedroom.
Now that's actually kind of interesting, because he asks her about having a pub sub, and he asks, did anyone sit down and join you while you were eating? And she says, no, I ate it in my bedroom. So where were Maddie and Stephan at this point in time? Because that to me comes across as her saying that they were not in her bedroom at the time that she sat down and ate her pub sub. So that is a contradiction again. I think the timeline starts falling apart from the time when Jean got home. If you saw my previous video, that's interesting because I made comments about the fact that she couldn't remember what Maddie was wearing that night, and when asked what clothes were available for the sniffer dogs, she referred to Maddie's party dress as being the last thing that she wore.
Okay. Did it look like anybody else had recently cooked food or eaten any food there that night?
From what I saw, no. I didn't see anyone cooking, or it didn't look like anyone had been cooking.
Okay. I believe in one of your former interviews you mentioned that Madeline might have gone over with you kind of what she got at the birthday party since you didn't have the chance to go because you were at work. Mm-hmm. When and where does that occur?
That occurs like right after I get home. It occurs in my bedroom. Everyone's in my room.
And so by everyone, let's just be clear since I understand you have some roommates. So what do you mean by everyone?
Okay. Madeline, Stephan, and myself were in my bedroom.
Okay, so perhaps she has misinterpreted what they've been asking her, because she states originally that she came home and she sat in her room essentially on her own and ate a pub sub for dinner. But now she's saying straight after she got home, they sat down in her room, her, Maddie and Stephan, and spoke about Maddie's party. Well, you can't be alone in your room eating a pub sub and sitting down with a couple of people at the same time and discussing Maddie's party. Yes, you could be discussing it while you're eating your pub sub, and perhaps that's what she meant to say, or maybe she meant to say that she had a pub sub and then they joined her and told her about Maddie's party. But her timeline is problematic. She's got two very different things occurring at the same time. Either she was in her bedroom on her own while she ate her pub sub, or she was in her bedroom with Maddie and Stephan talking about the party. Because she's saying these things happened immediately after she got home. I think we can possibly give her one of her little just kidding cards for this one, because it is possible that she has misinterpreted what they've said there. And we know that when Jen has made a mistake with what she's saying, she comes out with just kidding. So we'll give her a just kidding card for this one, but I do still have reservations over the fact that she's giving two separate timelines here.
Okay. At this point in time, do you recall what Madeline was wearing?
I don't know.
Let me ask it a different way. Can you tell me whether or not she was wearing a long-sleeved green sweatshirt and jeans?
Oh, no.
Okay. Would she have kind of been in her bed gear, or do you think she could have still been in the dress that she wore to her birthday celebration?
She would have been in pajamas. I can't recall the exact pajamas, but she would have been in pajamas. She had already, by this point in the evening, she had already showered and changed out of that birthday dress.
And was it your understanding from your sister that she had gotten dropped off about 8:30, she being Madeline?
8:30, 8:45, something around that time, yeah.
And what's your understanding as to when Stephan had gotten there? If you know. If you don't guess, it's fine.
Actually, while he's saying that, this is important. So there's things that you might think should be a certain way, because that's just the way things go. But don't just guess based on past history that it's the same as what happened on that particular day. If you don't know, you don't know.
Then, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what time he got there.
Okay. You were at work, so I just didn't know if, like, sometimes families check in, hey, I made it, by text or by phone call or anything like that. Do you not remember any of that?
I don't remember.
Okay. How long were the three of you in your bedroom?
I'm going to say for about 30 minutes.
So she also seems fairly consistent with the sending them up to bed at around 11 o'clock, because she's saying she got home at 10:30. She's saying they were in her bedroom for around 30 minutes, at which stage she sent them up to bed.
Okay. Now, during this 30 minutes that the three of you are in your bedroom, is Madeline engaging in any of her kind of nighttime routine, or, getting ready for bed? What else is going on, if anything?
We spent a long time talking about gifts and having her show me, and then we counted out her own money. I can't remember if she had finished with all of her bedtime routine.
So there's really, really long pauses here. All he wants to know is basically what was happening in that 30-minute time frame. And all she can give him is that they spoke about Maddie's presence and they counted out her money. But then she's still not sure if they did anything else. To me, this is a little bit concerning. This is the last time she had with her child. It should be indelible in her mind. And now I haven't actually listened to audio of an interview with her sister, but I've been told that her sister said that Maddie's money was actually still at the grandmother's house. I can't verify that, so I'm not going to go with that. But she's saying here that the time was spent talking about Maddie's presence, counting Maddie's money, but she's not really sure what else they were doing in that half an hour time frame. I just have so much doubt over the time frame starting from when Jen arrived home. There's inconsistencies, and she seems to really struggle to give information. She doesn't know what pyjamas Maddie was wearing. She can't remember what else they did other than talk about Maddie's presence and count Maddie's money. And the thing is, I know people have said, well, you know, you might forget about what pyjamas she was wearing. But she came back to the house the evening after reporting Maddie was missing. Either Maddie's pyjamas would have been on the floor in her bathroom, or they would have been on the floor in Maddie's room or in that laundry hamper. So she should actually have no problems with recalling what Maddie's pyjamas were, because at some point in time they had to have been picked up and either taken by law enforcement, in which case Jen would know which pyjamas were missing, or they had to have been picked up and washed by Jen at some point in time. So her being really vague about what Maddie was wearing is a concern for me. Her being vague about what happened in that half-hour period is a concern for me. Okay, let's continue with what else she has to say here.
Okay. Does she brush her teeth at night?
In the shower.
In the shower? Okay. And that occurred before you got home?
Yeah.
And my understanding with her nighttime medication is that's something that you would like to make sure she had bedtime or so?
Something like that, yeah.
So were you present for that occurring, or did that occur after you got home?
That did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself.
Okay. And is that something that she's allowed to do?
From time to time, yeah.
All right. Now, Madeline, does she lay out her clothes for school the next day, or is that something she gets in the morning, makes a game time decision like my kid?
Typically, it is a game time decision morning of.
Okay. What about this specific evening? Do you remember anything about it?
Yes. This evening, we had, I had already discussed prior to Stephan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. So because I knew that was what was going to happen that night, I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready, so that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. It won't be too much of a hassle in the morning. And so she did. She picked out her clothing. I asked her what she was wearing, and she told me what she had picked out. I said, okay, fine.
All right, so she picks it out, but does she physically take it out of somewhere, wherever she stores her clothes, and put it somewhere?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm
So-
not sure if she took that clothes upstairs with her or anything like that.
All right. So as far you didn't see them in your room, and did you have the opportunity to kind of see her cubby part of the living room to see if she had put them on her bed or anything like that?
I hadn't seen no.
Okay, so she's establishing here that before she got home, Maddie had completed all her nighttime routines. And then there's a conversation about Maddie sorting out her clothes for the following day. Now, my interpretation of that is that this conversation possibly occurred before Jen went to work earlier that day. But it is somewhat ambiguous, so we can't exactly say for certain when that occurred. So maybe Maddie organised her clothes before Jen got home. Maybe she got them organised after Jen got home. But at the same time, Jen says that she doesn't know if Maddie actually simply decided what she was wearing or got the clothes out that she was going to be wearing. So, in terms of the timeline, it is confusing, but I don't think there's much more that we can take from that other than that it's possible that at some time Maddie may have laid clothes out for herself for the following day. It's also possible that she may have not laid clothes out for herself the following day. So for that reason, I'm actually going to leave that out of the timeline when I consider it, because logic would dictate that if she did or she didn't, I would still expect that it would have happened earlier than that 10:30, 11 o'clock time frame. Maybe it happened between 8:30 and 10:30. I don't think we're ever going to know, because they haven't asked Jen here what clothes were agreed on, which I think is kind of significant. This is the April the 18th interview. There's probably a good reason why they haven't asked her what clothes were agreed on. Do they believe that she's telling a bit of a porky here? They don't want to highlight the fact that she's telling a lie by asking her a question that she probably can't answer.
So if Stephan says something like Maddie's building her nest and getting settled in, would that to you mean like her stuff is part of this nest, or what do you think that would mean, if you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you recall getting that text from Stephan that night that Maddie had settled into her nest for the night?
I don't remember that text now.
Okay.
Now, I've noticed with this interview that when they're asking her about things that Stephan may have done, Stephan may have been wearing, or Stephan may have said, that she is somewhat reticent in her answers. She's saying that she doesn't remember, she doesn't recall. And I actually think that that makes sense. This is, 6 weeks after everything happened? And I think in her brain, there's probably that need to try and block out some of the things in relation to Stephan. He's the perpetrator who, regardless of Jen's actions, regardless of whether or not she may have somehow assisted him with covering up for what he did, all that stuff, she's had time to process it. And he's basically the person who took her child away from her. No matter what we think of Jen, there must be some maternal instinct buried deep down in there. So to me, it makes sense that her brain is shutting out anything to do with Stephan. Either that or she's just being extremely evasive. But her voice drops and it becomes hard to hear what she's saying when they ask these questions, and she seems to not have answers for them. I would love to hear the perspective on this from a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but to me it seems like her brain is trying to shut out Stephan completely. I may be wrong. It could also be that she is trying to shut out in her brain any actions that she herself did that were contributing factors. I'm not a psychologist, so I couldn't say. I'd love to hear what other people think, though, with regards to the way that she is, in this interview, unable to give answers when it comes to Stearns.
My understanding was that at some point you told them it was time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Do you recall about what time that was?
Around 11 o'clock.
So that's consistent with getting home at 10:30, having this half-hour discussion, and eating your pub sub? Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Do they comply with your wishes to go upstairs when you say that at about 11 o'clock?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Is there any further communication between either you and Madeline or you and Stephan about, all right, kids, it's time to go to bed, anything like that? Or was that the last you had heard from either one of them that night?
I think at some point Stephan comes downstairs to use the restroom and then goes back upstairs, but after that I don't recall interacting or saying anything, so.
Okay.
Now that one I find harder to excuse. They've asked her, after Stephan and Maddie went upstairs, did she have any further interaction with either of them? There's a long pause, and then she says, I think Stephan came downstairs to use the bathroom. So she's not giving all the information here, because we know, and I'll show you the documents shortly, that there were text messages between her and Stephan. Now, in terms of conversations that were had or things that people might have been wearing, I could give her a little bit of leeway there. Like I said, I could understand if her brain is trying to protect her by blocking out things to do with Stephan, and yet she can remember him coming downstairs to use the bathroom apparently, but text messages where you have these visual cues, she can't remember, or she's unwilling to answer. And let's be clear, she would have had her phone returned to her. Her phone would not be kept as evidence. Stephan's phone would have been kept as evidence. Her phone would have been returned to her. They would have done a full dump of the phone, like a complete download of all the data and everything, and then returned her phone to her exactly the same as when she handed it over. So those text messages would have remained on her phone, and yet she can't remember them, or she's choosing not to mention them. And don't forget, they've just prompted her with a question about Maddie building a nest, which is essentially one of the things that was said in these text messages. So this is a concern for me. But essentially here we have a timeline of them heading upstairs. She's avoiding it, but there are text messages that occur, and she says that at some point in time he comes downstairs to use the bathroom. That one, I think, until we can get Fitbit data, so that may not ever be released, but until we get the information back from the Fitbit, we may not know what time that occurred. Now, I will come back to what was said by the roommate, but I'm not going to do it as an audio. I'm going to do it from the documents, simply because with her being Spanish speaking, it's a longer one to listen to because you've got all the back and forth with the translations. It's easier to get lost in all of that. So it's going to be, I think, clearer to just look at the report. But before that, I want to look at the data that we have from the documents, which will basically solidify the timeline that we've looked at in this video. Now, these probably require a little bit of explanation. So up in the top left-hand corner, you have a key which explains all the colours and the symbols. Now, for that salmon-y pink one, it says sea sterns, that it's actually talking about Stephan. So we know now that even his phone was paid for by his father. This is his regular phone, not the phone that his father gave him afterwards. So this moocher didn't even pay for his own phone. So the salmon colour is sea sterns, that's Stephan. The purple is Maddie. It may help to remember that Maddie's phone was a purple iPhone with a clear case. So that may help to remember as we go through, but I will keep explaining as we go through. Then the sky blue is Jen's phone. You'll see as we go through how that makes sense. Now, I haven't backtracked, but you can see on the map you have that big wide angle and you have a big half circle, or not even half circle, but you have that partial circle within the angle. That is showing you the tower and the tower range. Now, if you have seen this on Grizzly's channel, you may have noticed that there are other images where, for example, this purple sweep, I'm going to call it, shows several different ones on the one map, and that is an indication that the phone is moving. On this map here, you can see that it is just showing one single sweep, one blip from the tower, which means that Maddie was home at this point in time. So before this, it shows you a few different purple sweeps. Here you can see that at 20:29, which is at 8:29, Maddie was home. So this is Maddie's phone. It's not moving because there's only one purple sweep on the map. So Maddie was home at 20:29, at 8:29. Now, having said that, just to confuse you, there are now 3 towers that are picking up Maddie's phone at 8:36. But you can see from the sweep of each of those towers that it still places Maddie's phone at the house. So the red house is the townhouse, basically. The green house, which doesn't factor in here anywhere, was the grandmother's house, but that was previous, so we don't need to worry about that. Now at 8:36, you can see the beginning of the sweep from Stephan's phone. So there's a tower that's picked up his phone heading towards the house. Now, perhaps at that point in time he might have been stopped at traffic lights or something, because there seems to not be any movement occurring there. It's also possible that I'm not as good at reading this as I think I am, and that it's just saying the phone is somewhere within that range. It could still be moving. But we still have we have 3 towers picking up Maddie's phone, and you can triangulate the towers and you can see Maddie's phone was at the house. So Maddie's phone was at the house. We know that she got home at 8:29. Stephan is still en route, and he is now within range, essentially, of the house. Now this is 5 minutes later, and I'm not quite sure why you see that additional tower blip in the top, except that that is pretty much the same location where it was picked up earlier. So it may be just a glitch in the data, but you can see quite firmly that the tower basically to the west of the house, if I'm probably not in the right direction, north, south, east, west, but on this map it looks west. So the tower to the left of the house has basically got Stephan's phone and Maddie's phone in the same location at 8:41. So we have Maddie arriving home at 8:29. Stephan arrived at the apartments at 8:41, and that's confirmed by this map. So I think what they've done here is they've shown Jen's route home ending at 10:21, when you can see, if you look down the bottom of the screen, that the blue arc from her phone sits in the same location as Stephan and Maddie's phone. So I think what they've done is they've shown the movement of her phone returning home, with the final time being 10:21. Her phone is at home. So Jen got home at 10:21. I think she was probably speeding if she says that it takes 25 minutes to get home, or she left work a little bit early, because she said she left at 10 and it took 25 minutes. We now know, based on this, so this is based on the cell phone towers, that she was home at 10:21. Now, I will just point out with these maps that there were times when they were basically only showing 1 or 2 of the phones. I don't know if they've covered Maddie's phone with this map right now, because we know that Maddie's phone was there in the mix. So you've got, this is looking at the period of time from 10:23 to 10:33. You can see that Jen was well and truly home by 10:33. Seems to be saying that she arrived home at 10:23. Now let's move on to some more data. Now they haven't given us everything here. They've only started showing steps from 9 minutes past 10. So that's before Jen got home. It records 9 steps taken. At 11:19, 23:19, 31 steps taken and 1 floor climbed. And it says here which matched the time when Jen sent Maddie and Stephan upstairs to go to sleep. So while she's saying that she got home at 10:30 and sent them to bed at 11, you can see here that she actually sent them upstairs at about 20 past 11. So they were all downstairs for roughly an hour after Jen got home. Now, I'm going to jump down to the bottom, or the bottom paragraph that's intact anyway. So the phone was plugged in at 11:38. So roughly 10 minutes after going upstairs, Maddie's phone was plugged in to charge. The rest we'll look at in the next video, looking at when it was unplugged from the charger. Now, to me, that actually suggests that, I know I said in the previous video that I was uncertain about if Maddie was still alive when Jen got home. And I guess, you know, at the end of the day, this doesn't prove that Maddie was still alive when Jen got home. But the fact that the phone was plugged in suggests to me that it was Maddie that took that phone upstairs and plugged it in to charge. Because I could imagine that had Stephan done something wrong and Jen was aware of it at that point in time, it may not have actually occurred to him to plug the phone into charge. And when you look at the behaviour below, where basically in the morning the phone is powered off, why not just power it off in the evening if that was when things happened? Just throwing a spanner in the works there. But to me, it appears that while Jen is somehow being evasive about what happened between when she got home and when Maddie went to bed, it seems to me that Maddie did in fact go upstairs and plug her phone into the charger. After that, we can't be entirely certain what happened. We have Jen saying that Stephan came back downstairs. Okay, so after Maddie and Stephan went upstairs, what was going on with Jen's phone? So according to this, at 11:39, which is 20 minutes after Stephan and Maddie went upstairs, Jen sends a text to Stephan saying, make sure she goes to bed right now. I'm not going to read his reply because this guy just makes me sick. She replies with good night. And then we have the nest comment. And Jen's reply there is okay, good. Which is interesting because when the detectives asked her, what do you think he meant by building a nest? She said, I don't know. But it seems like she understood this perfectly fine in this text conversation. Now, Jen, who apparently takes her meds and then completely knocks out and goes to sleep instantaneously, didn't put her phone onto the wireless charger for another 15 minutes after that. So at 11:54, she put her phone on a wireless charger and set her alarm. Then we have her removing the phone at 9:20 in the morning, but I'll come back to that in the following video. So I think from this, so far this does line up with the timeline that we've been given. Now before I finish looking at this particular evening, I do want to look at what was said by the flatmate. Like I said, I'm looking at it in the document as opposed to listening to her interview, just because I think it's a little bit more efficient rather than having to go through all the translations and everything also. Okay, so I've marked the relevant bit with that purple line. So this is the interview with the flatmate who spoke Spanish. And she's saying that she got home from work between 11 and 11:30. So she's not entirely certain. And she's saying she didn't see anyone when she got home, but could hear people upstairs. Now, we don't know if that is Maddie and Stephan upstairs or if that is the other flatmate, because she actually mentioned about heading to bed about 8 o'clock and leaving the television on. So it's possible that she could have been hearing the television, or if we're looking at a time frame of between 11 and 11:30, perhaps she got home closer to 11:30 and therefore she did hear Maddie and Stephan in his bedroom upstairs. Now, they talk about her going to sleep around 2:30, and they talk about her hearing noises coming from Stephan's room. So that must have occurred at some time between 11:30 and 2:30. Now, this interview was a bit tricky because of the language barrier, but it appears that she was saying that the noises occurred sometime between 11:30 and 2:30, and that they sounded like someone putting stuff on a table. This person has said this, not her. In order for her to hear noises, it would have to be significant based upon the noise would have to travel through 2 closed doors and across a hallway. That makes sense, especially if the other flatmate had their television going. So it actually goes on to say that if the other flatmate were awake, then the television would be on, or there would be a light on in her room. And when she got home at 11:30, neither was on. So sounds like by the time all this was happening, Stephanie was already asleep. This flatmate got home possibly around 11:30. I'm going to say between 11:20 and 11:30, because apparently Stephan and Maddie were already upstairs at that point in time. And then she heard noises sometime between 11:30 and 2:30 coming from that room. So that's what we have for the timeline for that evening, the night of the party basically. So while on one hand what we have from the flatmate we can't actually lock in terms of solid times, we can at least go with approximates, and logic would dictate that in terms of this 11 to 11:30 time frame, that she must have arrived sometime after 11:19. So that actually narrows that down. But the other times that we have here, we can say that they are accurate because they are actually based on cell phone data. So that is our time frame, as close as we are going to get, for the evening of February the 25th, through until sometime before 2:30 in the morning. Now, I haven't included in there what Jen said about Stephan going downstairs at some time, because all we have is her saying that. We don't know if that happened early in the morning of the following day, if that happened then on the evening. But until we've got Fitbit data, this is probably as good as our timeline gets for now, for that evening. Like I said, this one's probably the easier one to figure out, but it definitely gives us a clear picture of what occurred, in terms of movements at least, on that evening. Now, I'm just going to say, if there are any creators watching this, feel free to screenshot this and use this on your own channels. We, share the work, why not? So, I'm going to leave it at that. My next video will be having a look at the following morning. And I think that I'm probably going to have to do the following day in 2 videos, given that I thought this one was a pretty simple one, but it's already taken nearly an hour. So thanks for listening. If you're new to my channel, please do subscribe. Also hit the like button and leave a comment below. What are your thoughts in terms of some of the things that are a bit up in the air here still? Do you think this is solid proof that what happened to Maddie occurred upstairs? Do you think it's really, really interesting that you have Maddie's phone being put on a charger and then 1 minute later you have Jen sending text messages to Stephan? Or do you think that's just an interesting coincidence? Because I would have thought that if Maddie's phone went on the charger at 11:38, that would mean that she was finally settled in and going quiet. So why would Jen then need to send a text message 1 minute later? Because wouldn't you just presume, if everything was quiet, that everything was fine? Okay, so thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I've been